Greetings. Welcome back to my channel, Ham Radio Test and Review. My name is Dave. I live in Prescott, Arizona, and my call sign is N8DAV, and my motto is one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions. Today, I'm going to give you my expert opinion. Far from an expert, though. Let me just tell you, I'm just an average guy doing average work and giving you my opinion about what I find. I just test, show you the results, and give you my opinion. So today, what I'm going to be doing is giving you my final thoughts on the iRadio UV-98. This particular radio I bought because it promised a lot, and let's see what it delivered. So this radio was advertised as being able to transmit from 18 to 64 megahertz and from 136 to 520 megahertz. Now, I'm not going to be transmitting on air bands or weather bands or any of that kind of stuff down in the lower 130 megahertz band. But I am going to be testing it on the 2-meter band and on the 70 centimeter band on GMRS. All of those worked okay. It's advertised as a 10-watt radio, and it's very disappointing that we only got 8 watts on 2-meter and only 5 or 6 watts on the 70 centimeter, and even less, a little bit less than that on GMRS. So, advertisements only go so far. And what I will tell you as far as that is concerned is, since it's supposed to transmit on the 1.25 meter band, on the 10 meter band, and on the 11 meter band, it did not. It just did not put any power, any measurable power output on any of those bands. So this is definitely a problem with this radio. It may just be my particular radio that's having a problem. I do not know. The power output that I measured, 2 different meters, one for the HF bands and then one for the VHF bands and UHF bands. Those did not measure any appreciable power output. So to verify that my meters were not just reading 0 for no reason, I also got out my field strength meter and stuck it right next to the radio, and hitting the PTT button, absolutely nothing showed up on my field strength meter. Absolutely nothing. 0. However, one thing did happen on the 1.25 meter band. I did get very, very slight power output on a harmonic, meaning the harmonic was putting out more power than the actual band that it was configured to transmit on. That's not a good thing. So this radio obviously still has some work that needs to be done on it. Now, once again, it could be my particular radio. They're cheap Chinese radios. I mean, what do you expect? You can't expect good quality, but you can't expect to be able to return it if you so desire. So that's some of the poor things. One of the other poor things I found with this radio was that the squelch situation with the radio, it just doesn't work properly. When you set your squelch to 0, you expect it to have the white noise all the time, the static. That's what you expect, and that's just what's supposed to happen. But when I do that with my radio, it stays squelched. The squelch is not broken. That's something, and you can see with the S meter and the receive light that it actually is supposed to be putting out some static of some sort, and I get nothing. So, that mostly happens on the 70 centimeter band. Some people have told me that it's bad for them on the 2-meter band. So I've tried it on both, and it seems to happen on both. But, once again, something is wrong with my radio, I think. So some of the good things about the radio is it does put out almost 8 watts on 2-meter, even though it's advertised 10 watts. It only puts out 5 to 6 watts on 70 centimeter and a slightly less on the GMRS band. But again, it would not transmit on 10 meter, 11 meter, and 1.25 meter, period. just puts out absolutely nothing. Also on the plus side, though, it has great AM reception. Excuse me. The airband, it just rocked. It really did a good job on the airband. However, I still also had some problems with the squelch situation on the airband. So, it wasn't picking up some very, very low level signals that my other radios were picking up, sitting right next to it. So, again, that needs to be worked out. But the AM modulation, nice and clear, very loud and very clear. The next thing is the weather band. Once again, very clear, very loud, and good sensitivity. I was able to pick up weather bands on it that I was not able to pick up on any of my other radios. So what does that tell you? It tells you that it does have some good sensitivity on some of the frequencies, but not all the frequencies. Cheap Chinese radios, sensitivity usually is not that great, and selectivity is usually really bad. And in this particular radio, that's generally true. On the frequencies that I just told you about, sensitivity was great. But when you get into the higher frequencies, sensitivity starts to drop off. Same with the selectivity. I was able to hear other radios transmitting on close bands. Everybody says, oh, you're being too picky. I'm not being too picky. I've got good radios also. I've got Yaesus, I've got ICOMs, and that doesn't happen with those radios. So I just want you to understand that, once again, the Chinese radios, for the most part, not that great as far as the receivers are concerned. Transmitting, I get good modulation with this radio. I've done several radio checks on different frequencies to different repeaters. I've gotten out to those repeaters, been able to break the squelch on the repeaters, been able to get through to them, and I get good radio checks on those. Very positive on those respects. The 3 VFOs, I want to mention this to you. I thought that, for me, that this was going to be a boom, a great feature. And I found that not so great. And I'll tell you why. This is just me. There's nothing wrong with the radio. The radio worked perfectly. Having 3 VFOs and having the tri-band monitor, I thought would be just really great for me, because I do monitor 2 particular frequencies with a dual band monitor radio, and then I set my node up for a 3rd frequency. So I do almost always monitor 3 bands at the same time. The difference is that I'm using 2 different radios for 3 bands. Now, having 1 radio for 3 bands worked absolutely perfectly and flawlessly the way it was supposed to happen. The problem is that when I hear something on one of those bands, I need to look at the radio and see where it came from. So I know which band that I was actually hearing. And with my other radios, they have an S meter that sticks around for a few seconds after the reception turns off. I can see which band that it actually received on. This radio reacts immediately. So in other words, if something transmits, the second that it stops, it goes back to where you had it set. And so you can't tell which frequency or which VFO was actually receiving. It's a little bit of an annoyance, but it's not the fault of the radio. That's my fault. The next thing is that, being kind of an older person, also, when I want to transmit on one of the VFOs, I have to remember to set the transmit on one of those VFOs. Or I can set up having 3 PTT keys, which I do on my other radios. Of course, not 3, but 2 on my other radios. And so I have them set up on 2 PTT keys, and that works out perfectly for me. I tried doing the 3 PTT key thing, but then I couldn't program those buttons for other things that I really needed them to be programmed for. So it was either have 3 PTT keys or have them programmed for other things that I really needed. So I kept them programmed for the things that I needed. And so, I sometimes would transmit on the wrong frequency, on the wrong VFO, when I wanted to transmit on a different one. Again, this is all my fault. This has nothing to do with the radio. It did work flawlessly, however. The next thing that I want to say about the radio is that the crossband repeater worked very well. I was very happy with the way it worked. I'm very happy with how quickly and easily I'm able to set it up, and how quickly, easily I was able to get it going, and how it worked during the time that I really needed it. The modulation and the clarity were a bit off. I have to admit, it wasn't as good as using my Baofangs in a duplex repeater situation. I guess that's being nitpicky to a certain extent, but the quality of the sound is also very important, as long as everything else. So that's something that you might want to consider. But the other thing that I'm really considering with this radio is I have a use case for the crossband repeater, something that I actually intend to use a lot. And the problem is that these radios are not necessarily set up for a high duty cycle. And if I use the crossband repeater a lot, I could theoretically wear it out very quickly. And so that's something that you might want to also take into consideration. These radios are not made for high duty cycles, and using the repeater, the crossband repeater function, does take a lot out of the radio. I ran down that battery really, really quickly. So something to take into consideration, because I do use the repeater function a lot when I do have it set up. But once again, it worked well for what I was looking for it to do and what I was expecting of it. Overall, I would say that this is a radio that's got a lot of new and innovative features. I like radios like that. I mean, I don't expect them to work perfectly. However, one of the big things that I did expect was that this radio would work very, very well right out of the box, and it did not. Immediately, not too long after I got the radio, iRadio put out a firmware update. Now, why would they do that if the firmware that they put on the radio was meant for prime time? It obviously wasn't. Even the updated firmware, once again, not meant for prime time. Radtel put out a firmware version, which, by the way, works on the iRadio, which is much better, and has better quality control, quality assurance done on it. And it makes sure that some of the things that are not good with the radio are now better with the radio. So obviously, iRadio and Radtel put out their radios before they really should have. They're letting the people do quality control, quality assurance on their radios. And I just don't think that's very nice of them, unless they claim, hey, we're putting this out as a beta test, and if you want to join in here, we got a beta test for you. They never said a word. This radio was not ready to be released. I'm a ex-quality control, quality assurance, high-tech hardware and software quality control engineer, and I'm telling you right now, these radios and the firmware were not ready for prime time. The worst part of the iRadio part of all of this is that when they did put out a software to program the radio and firmware to update your radio, when you went out to their website, it was all in Chinese. You couldn't read it. Nobody knew what it was. If I hadn't actually downloaded it to see what it was and actually look and see what it was, I never would have known. If you want to go out to iRadio and look on their website, you'll see there's just a few downloads available, Two of them were for the UV-98. You would never know because it's all in Chinese. Can't read Chinese, sorry. I put those on my videos, and I have those on my channel. So you can see that it's all in Chinese and there's no way of knowing. Not very good support. Now, with some of these problems that I've had with the radio, I've actually emailed the support email address for iRadio several times. I think 3 or 4 times, maybe 5. I have not received an answer from them at all. They've completely ignored me. And apparently I'm not the only one they've completely ignored. They apparently completely ignored many other people in some of the Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups that I belong to. That's not a good thing, iRadio, let me tell you. You not only have to fix the stuff, you have to listen to the people that have these radios, and you have to respond to them. Otherwise, they're not going to want to buy your products. Do I recommend that you buy an iRadio product? After the lack of support that I've received, I would not do it again. I'm not buying another iRadio product again, unless everybody's like, Dave, come on, buy this for it, test it out for us. Oh, okay, I'll do that. Because I'm willing to experiment. I'm willing to blow the radio up. I'm willing to brick it. I don't have a problem with that. So, but some of you, you have hard-earned dollars and you don't want to take that chance. And I get that. I'm willing to take that chance for you. Would I buy the Radtel version? Radtel is supporting their product a lot better than the iRadio, and they are responding to support requests. I don't know how well. I've heard some things good and not so good. So take that for what it's worth. This is a new radio. It's got a lot of new features. It's got a lot of things that a lot of other Chinese radios do not have. So if you want to be at the forefront of the technology, that's great. Go ahead, take your chance, buy your radio, and have fun with it. That's what these radios are all about, is having fun. If you can't afford to tinker with your radio and maybe brick it or lose it or whatever, then wait until the product becomes more mature. It's got a few firmware versions out there, and it's already time tested, and it's tested by a bunch of other consumers that have already tried. That's fine too. So listen, this radio is not a bad radio. It has the potential to be a great radio, actually. If there were some tweaks that are done to it and some changes that are made to it, especially on the reception and on the power output on the higher frequencies, and also to fix the problem with it not transmitting on the frequencies that it says it can transmit on, like the 10, 11, and 1.25 meter, I would say, you know what, it might be worth it. But I'll tell you what, final thought for me on this is I'm returning my radio. If it doesn't transmit on those frequencies, that's one of the things I bought the radio for. If it's not going to transmit on those frequencies, I don't want it. I would love to keep it for the crossband repeater function, but that's not enough for me to keep it. This is the first cheap Chinese radio I'm going to return. So I'll let you know if AliExpress takes care of me and refunds my money. We shall see. Anyway, that's my final thoughts on the UV-98 and the Radtel RT-880. And my name is Dave. My call sign is N8DAV. My motto is one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions. I hope you enjoyed all the videos that I made on the iRadio UV-98. I did them because I really feel very strongly that you guys need to know what's happening with all these cheap Chinese radios. And I don't pull any punches, and I let you know exactly what's going on with them. They either work or they don't. They're working good or they're not working good, whatever. I have no allegiance to anybody. So anyway, I'm going to be signing off, saying 73s to you, and so long.